wish I knew how to quit you.
Happy New Year, Mary.
Happy New Year, Matt. It's been a bit of a week.
Absolutely.
I've seen quite a few little memes and things of people saying, I've tried the 7-day free trial and I don't want to do 2021.
Can I cancel my subscription?
I want to cancel.
Yeah, but hopefully from here on in, it will get better. And I think while the week itself hasn't been good, we've actually had a lot of good stuff to watch.
Yeah, in terms of the podcast, it's been good.
Yeah. Before we get started, Happy New Year to our listeners. If you are new and you like what you hear, please do drop us a like. Feel free to drop us a comment if you radically disagree with what we say.
Or agree.
Or agree. So, a bit of context to this episode. Last April, we picked an episode each based on something that we personally wanted to explore. In that case, it was our dissertation topics from when we were at uni, and we thought we've got to do that again this year, not with dissertations as such.
It was really good fun. And it was also a way for the other person to kind of go into something a little bit different, something they ordinarily wouldn't have done, really. So
I would have picked. So you did Titanic and I did Cloud Atlas. So this year we've done the same, but we've picked stars.
Yes.
To look at the careers of. And we're kicking off with my choice,
Yep.
which came a bit out of the blue, but it made so much sense now that I've thought about it. And that is Jake Gyllenhaal, who actually had his 40th birthday in the middle of December.
I just can't believe it. How is that man 40?
Well, he's one of those, I reckon, that will just be ageless.
He looks the same. He doesn't look anywhere near 40 either. That's something we will discuss quite deeply, I think, is the appearance of his characters, how important the look is to him and his performance. That's something I noticed very, very strongly in the films that I studied.
He's a subtle shapeshifter, not as overt and obvious as some actors might transform themselves, but it's still effective.
But it is still extremely important to his work and how he creates a character. So, do you want to explain how the format's going to go today, Matt?
Yeah. We've picked 5 films each, so we're not able to cover absolutely everything in his career.
Too much good stuff.
Way too much, and massively underrated, and we'll talk about that as well. So we've picked some films that are favourites, some that are rewatches, but crucially we've picked 3 films each that we've never seen before, so actually you're getting our first time reactions to those. We're going chronological order, so it's not worked out exactly that we alternate, but we'll track his career from beginning to end. Not that it's ended. And I believe then that means I'm kicking things off with October Sky, which came out in 1999.
I really do want to see this.
It's such a 90s film.
Really? I love
got that feel about it.
Yeah, I love a good 90s film.
But it's not set in the 90s. It's actually set in 1957.
Oh.
Right when the Sputnik satellite went up, it got launched into space by the Soviet Union in the Cold War, and the space race is on, and all of a sudden everybody's eyes are on the skies.
Yeah.
But not really in a very small town in West Virginia called Colwood, where basically it's a small mining town, and if you're a man, that's kind of your fate. You'll go and work down in the mines. Maybe the odd lucky one will get plucked out of high school with a football scholarship, but apart from that, that's what you'll do until the day you die.
Yeah.
If the mine itself doesn't kill you, because there are lots of accidents.
Yeah.
And Jake Gyllenhaal plays, it's a true story, he plays Homer Hickam, and he's basically a high schooler. He's no good at sports, he's useless with girls, and his father, who is played by Chris Cooper, actually manages the local mining company, so his prospects aren't great, really.
No.
You can see that's where he's probably going to end up. But there's one night where the whole town gathers outside because the Sputnik satellite is going overhead, and he sort of becomes inspired, and he basically just decides, you know what, I'm going to build a rocket. Not a massive one, just like just a rocket. So the plot basically is him and his friends. They sort of commit social suicide, really, because they endeavour to win the state and national science fair with the help of their science teacher, who's played by Laura Dern, who's really good in this.
Oh, lovely. I do love Laura Dern.
That's pretty much it. I mean, yeah, in the hope that they might get a scholarship and then be able to just escape Colwood and have a future. I'll give you a clue. In real life, he becomes a NASA scientist. It's not, it's fairly predictable.
It worked then.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's not. It's one of those exactly where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why would they be telling you about it?
Exactly. Yeah.
And there's just a bit of friction along the way with his dad, who really, he completely disapproves of what he's doing, and they very rarely see eye to eye. And but the thing is, it was at a time where science, for a lot of people, was still fiction. Do you know what I mean?
It was just fantasy. Wasn't a job.
No, not a proper vocation.
Not for someone from a town, anyway.
Yeah, there's lots of financial struggles going on as well, and building this rocket, it costs time consuming. There's lots of failed experiments and accidents and trial and error. And it's just not, he really wants his son to focus on something that's useful and make the town proud. But against all odds, that is actually what he does, and that's where it reminds me of 90s films. These underdogs who, go against the grain and do something, and when I say it's got that 90s inspirational biopic feel, I think of things like Apollo 13, and I think of Patch Adams, and in many ways it's quite similar to Billy Elliot. I know that's not real. It's
in good company then.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is the score. I think this was one of like the last times really that a film had like I don't want to say it's repetitive, but it repeats. Things like Driving Miss Daisy and Stand By Me and Forrest Gump, they have this musical theme that recurs, and I don't think we get that so much anymore.
No, not quite so much. No.
Yeah. So really good. Inspirational. A few fist bump moments, sort of predictable, but he's a really good, strong lead character in this, and you really root for him.
Put him on the map.
Absolutely. That's October Sky from 1999, and then I'm leading straight into Donnie Darko, which, oh my god, it's a bit of a.
This is the one that really cemented him.
Yeah.
Well, even though it didn't do particularly well to start with,
no, not all the time.
Still cemented him in work, basically.
Yeah, and it goes to show the power of cult film status. I actually learnt as well that I watched the director's cut. So if anyone else has already seen the film, I think the one I watched has more added into it and more information to help you understand the story. So I can't remember the original, so I've just gone off what I've seen. So who is Donnie Darko? Donnie Darko is a very troubled, neurotic teenager. He doesn't get on well with his family. He doesn't get on well at school. He's in therapy. He takes medication. And he sleepwalks. I think that's the best way to sum him up.
Yes, I think that pretty much does it, yeah.
And when I say sleepwalk, I don't just mean he walks down the corridor and, steps into the wardrobe or anything. He, literally goes off on...
miles and miles.
He wakes up in the middle of a road somewhere. And he's really disconnected from the world, and you can tell that because of some of the ways the scenes are filmed. Everything's in slow motion. You can't hear people's voices, and the camera's just drifting around, usually with a nice sort of Tears for Fears soundtrack, which I love.
Yeah.
And that's all well and good when one night in another October, 1988, it's October Sky all over again. Oh, it is, yeah, because what falls from the sky one night into his bedroom, luckily he's sleepwalked outside, is the engine of a jumbo jet, a plane, crashes right into his bedroom, and nobody knows where it came from.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, his parents they make a comment, someone must be looking out for him. And it's like, oh, interesting. And they're not wrong, because actually that night he was lured out of his bed by the voice of a terrifying 6-foot figure wearing a rabbit costume and a mask, who basically tells him in 28 days, 6 hours, the world's going to end.
Oh, nice. So not bleak at all then.
No, but it's a jumble of different things. You think, what's this jet plane got to do with this boy, and what's this boy got to do with the end of the world, and who is this rabbit? So naturally, he thinks he's going crazy. His therapist thinks he's suffering from like a paranoid schizophrenia kind of thing. And the plot basically is, in summary, this won't do justice to the film at all, but the rabbit makes him do things. It makes him flood the school. It makes him burn a house down. All these very destructive and antisocial behaviors, and even more confusing, he starts to experience some fourth dimensional powers. When I say fourth dimensional, I mean time, powers. It's hard to explain. So could it be that he's actually part of a master plan to safely close an unstable tangent universe caused by a wormhole and prevent a black hole from swallowing all existence. I had to write that down because that's what's implied to be the plot. But what I really, really like about the film is the supporting characters and cast, how they sort of fit into this pattern, because everybody he comes across almost seems to be guiding, steering him to trigger a certain chain of cause and effect.
Yeah.
So you've got Jenna Malone, who plays the sort of mysterious new girl, Gretchen. You've got Drew Barrymore, who's brilliant in this, his sassy English teacher who's teaching a lot of controversial literature, you might say. It's such a good role for her, and I completely forgot that she was in it. Then you've got a science teacher who lends him a book on time travel. There's a local celebrity motivational speaker played by Patrick Swayze, who I forgot about as well.
Yeah, I remember him in this just because I was so shocked at what ended up being his
the
part.
actual truth. Yeah, so he's a bit problematic. He teaches attitude lessons and stuff, but problematic ones. And then on top of that, you've got the therapist, you've got his friends, you've got the bullies at the school. One of them, young Seth Rogen, his parents and his sisters. One of them's played by his real life sister, Maggie Gyllenhaal. It's a great ensemble cast, even if you don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And what's in its favour is that it's so open to interpretation. Is it time travel? Is it about the education system? Is it about free will and fate and predestination?
So there's a lot of things you could read into it as a viewer. Absolutely. Basically, it leaves it open for you to decide.
There's really no right or wrong answer, really. You can sort of pick and choose what you want to go with. So released around the same time as like The Butterfly Effect and Requiem for a Dream and Mulholland Drive. It's very similar in nature to those.
Confusing narrative. Yeah.
It took me 3 YouTube videos before I could write any notes. So I was like, I just need to check. And it's obviously people dwell on it and they've puzzled over it ever since, which is why it's lasted.
Yeah.
And again, a very strong performance from a very young Jake Gyllenhaal. So
lovely.
I'm glad that one's over. That was 2001, and we're going to skip The Day After Tomorrow, which is another big one that we didn't get around to.
We're going to skip to, I would say his first real adult performance. I would say this is really. So we're going to skip ahead to 2005 and Brokeback Mountain. So the first thing I'm going to say, which is something I heard him say in an interview, which I think totally explains it. He said, we were cast for our essences. And I totally get that. Ang Lee, who directed this, he saw the energy that both Jack and Heath were going to bring to this and put those together. I really believe that's a great way to look at it. And if you think of it that way, you can really see, because there's not a lot of talking in this. It's very visual. Obviously, these epic vistas portrays the vastness of the landscape that they're in, but also not just that visually. It covers 20 years of time here. You've got 2 cowboys basically who meet to look after sheep, isn't it? Really, that's their job. They're staying over, making sure the sheep don't get killed by wolves or coyotes or anything like that. And through that process, they basically fall in love this one summer, and then it covers 20 years of time of their lives. That's first summer's 1963. Obviously at the time there was no way they were going to be able to have a life together, and it shows what their lives are basically, and what does happen to them both. And like I say, there's not loads of talking, so it is very visual. A lot of the time that passes, you're only aware through how the actors have subtly changed, and a lot is told through emotion and expression. Something that all 4 leads are extremely good at. And there's a lot of suppressed feelings in this film, I'd say. Obviously, the most obvious is the denial of sexuality, especially for Ennis. He can never admit that to himself, that he's a homosexual. He just cannot admit that.
It's funny you say that, because those 2 things are kind of linked, the lack of speech and then the characters themselves, because it's all about what's unsaid and what has to be unsaid.
Exactly. I think Jack is more open. He's not so good at suppressing as Ennis is. Ennis just pushes it down until these few times a year that he meets up with Jack. But there's a great unhappiness, especially as the years go on, as well as like a dissatisfaction with life, not only for the men but for the wives too. For Alma, she learns pretty early on like this hard truth about her husband, but that is suppressed as well. She suppresses the truth that until she literally can't handle it anymore, and and they get divorced. And the same for Maureen, played by Anne Hathaway. For them, it's just a simple separation. The closeness of the marriage is gone. They simply exist together. And did she know about Jack? The end, I think she knows.
She definitely knows by that point.
Yeah, I think because I think what she tells Ennis happened is not what happened. I think she's made that up, but I don't know if she knew like during the relationship. Overall, I think this is a very sad film.
Oh yeah, it's devastating.
What a waste of life, not being able to have what you really want and to be who you are. And in doing that, cause the unhappiness of other people that love you because you can't love them back. I'm not saying it's Jack and Ennis's fault. It's just the consequences
I know what you mean. Yeah,
of the situation.
Yeah.
It's just so unfortunate because all of these lives are affected and the children's lives, and it's just like this ripple effect because you can't be who you are. I think it's a very sad film.
And they almost can't win, can they? They could, whichever path they choose to take, there's no like end game for them,
No, absolutely not.
Happy end game.
But the performances are fantastic. They were very good. They had to do a lot with not a lot, if you know what I mean. Like I say, there's not a lot of speech there. There's a few scenes that really open it up a little bit. Jake basically has the biggest one, this is all we've got, Brokeback Mountain, that's a bigger scene, but you don't get many of them. It was all subtle what they were doing, but very well done.
Yeah, and Ang Lee won the director Oscar.
He did
that year, and then there was a lot of controversy about it not winning.
I've not seen Crash, so I can't comment, but I have a feeling
Crash isn't that bad. It's just
I have a feeling it probably shouldn't have won.
Yeah, but I think at the time, I mean, that was 15, 16 years ago. I think not a lot, but I think a lot has changed since then. And if Brokeback Mountain were to come out today,
it would have been the clear win.
Yeah. It was like the first major Hollywood film with two lead actors playing gay characters. It was
and
not camped up and not not a comedy and not side characters. It was really front and center.
Absolutely, it was a huge moment for cinema. Really, really serious moment. Definitely worth a watch. Just to see that moment in what it's done, what it was able to do for cinema. We're going to skip 5 years ahead now, though, to 2010, and Love and Other Drugs, which compared to some of the others, it's maybe a little light, or it appears to be. This covers a guy who is extremely intelligent, but he's got ADHD. He could have been a doctor, but he just couldn't study. He couldn't put the time in to become a doctor. But he's exceptionally smart, and that ends up in pharmaceutical sales. And the story is basically he meets a girl played by Anne Hathaway who has Parkinson's, very early Parkinson's, because it doesn't usually hit people that young. So it's almost an exceptional case. I think she's only in her 20s. So it's very rare. And it's about their relationship, what they kind of do to change each other, really. It just doesn't fit the mould of a normal rom-com, so to speak. Josh Gad's in it. He plays the brother. He's very funny. There are funny scenes in here. But when you actually get down to it, it does not fit the mould of a romantic comedy film. It's a lot more than that. There's great chemistry between him and Anne Hathaway, and obviously they worked together before in Brokeback Mountain. They really are great together. It really works, and that's why the film, I think, kind of just hits the spot, because you believe them two together. But I really think Parkinson's isn't something that you see portrayed on screen very often, especially
really.
for somebody that young as well. And it really puts you in the mindset of what it must be like.
Not usually female characters as well. I might be
I don't
be wrong
think
there,
so.
but I don't recall.
No, I can't think of anything really. And it's like the day-to-day hardships, like not being able to open a bottle, or not being able to do things, not being able to follow your life path because it's going to stop you doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side of it, taking that on, he has to decide whether he's going to take that on, because it will be hard. Life will be hard.
Mm.
And not only that, but there's another quite serious message to it. He wasn't living his true life. He was just kind of almost living this half life. You know, he was doing this job and he thought he liked it, but really, when he actually got down to it, he was quite a self-loathing person. And when you get to the end, I think he gives it up. And his relationship with Anne Hathaway in the film kind of brings that out. You know, he becomes a different person through meeting her and her troubles and all that kind of thing. But I'd give it a watch. I really would. It's not your usual rom-com. There's a lot more to it, and it is a really nice film.
Yeah. In a way, it's like a precursor to the films like Me Before You and 5 Feet Apart. And I don't know if there's a name for that kind of genre, but it's like people who may have a condition or a disability.
They're kind of put into that genre, but they're really not.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so. I think it's the type of film that it gets that title slapped onto it. It's a rom-com, but really, there's a lot more to it than that.
And that, you know, what else can we expect from Jake Gyllenhaal though? Because we were saying just before starting, there's no rom-coms really. That's the closest I think he's come to doing a rom-com.
Yeah, he doesn't ever do anything that's just your generic genre film, whatever the genre might be. There's always more to it than that. Which leads me very nicely into the next film, which was in 2013, and that's Prisoners. Now, my main memory of watching this was going to the cinema with a friend and coming out of it and being so spooked by it because it was so realistic that my friend ran to her car after seeing this because she was so freaked out by it.
Frightening film.
So that's my first memory of the movie. I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. And again, this is where the look, this is, I would say, the first film for me that we're covering here that the look is so important. Mm-hmm. The dark clothes, the haircut, the ring, the neck tattoo. It's all part of building this character. For him, it shows a toughness, this cool but intense guy. He's definitely a loner. It fits that profile, and there is this darkness in him. You can see it's just below the surface always, like he could snap at any moment.
Yeah.
And the look is so important to that. He also deepens his voice here as well. It's very gruff, and it fits this profile. Again, doesn't always say a lot.
I think Prisoners is the moment he really started creating characters.
Yeah, he does more research, more is put into the roles.
Yeah, it's less of himself.
Yeah, exactly. And Prisoners is basically, he plays a detective who is trying to find two little girls that have been kidnapped. They just vanish off the street on Thanksgiving, and somebody saw a van parked on the street, and these girls have disappeared. And basically the whole story is about him trying to find them and how the parents are dealing with it, the grief of the children being taken. It's a whodunit, but it's so much more than that for me. And I'm not saying other films don't do it, but this is such a real portrayal of what I think parents would be like. They want to get out there and they want to tear a strip off someone. They want they want to do anything and will do anything to get their children back. And I think it has such a realistic view of grief. And from two different sides, you've got Hugh Jackman's fantastic in this. He plays one of the dads, and he is the take matters into your own hands guy, which I think I would. I relate very much to. I don't have children, but I know that I would be that person. And then you've got the opposite side, his wife, who just cannot cope with life. She just kind of retreats,
shuts down, doesn't she?
So there's that. One thing that really stands out to me in this is the rage scene for Jake Gyllenhaal. It's a great performance, it really is. He feels this case so deeply, his frustration just cracks through. And this is where you see that darkness. He has this violence beneath the surface and it breaks through. No one could say he didn't care about his job. He's desperate to find these girls, and he's not getting where he needs to get. And obviously time is a huge factor in kidnappings. And it is a fantastic bit of acting. There's utter frustration. And I love the small things he does in this film. For instance, the main thing for me is he's getting no sleep. And you know that through his performance. He heavily blinks, almost a twitch even. And he rubs his eyes a lot because he's exhausted. It's so subtle you could miss it though, because it's just something he's doing in the background. And I just feel like he really does justice to the characters. It brings this reality to his characters. And like you say, especially when he got to this point, I think the further into his career progression he's just got better and better and better. And obviously it was Denis Villeneuve who directed this, who's gone on to great things. We're awaiting June, aren't we? Coming out.
June, yes.
Yeah,
it's this year now.
And he's done Blade Runner, and he's he's become this huge thing. But even here, this is a great movie.
Yeah, that is so good.
I would definitely recommend watching this if you haven't seen it. It's a great watch.
Yeah, really I think it's gaining more popularity over time.
Obviously, the bigger the stars get and the director gets, the more people will go back and watch it.
That's true. I did the same with another film that he did with Denis Villeneuve in 2013 called Enemy, which I recommended a couple of weeks ago.
Which leads me very well into my next film, which is Nightcrawler, which I cannot believe is as old as it is.
But you know what? We always talk about 2014 and how good of a year it was. This is one that we keep forgetting to add in the list.
Yeah, I mean, 2014, I just cannot believe that it was that long ago.
Yeah.
And I missed this. I remember doing, so we watch the films, don't we?
Come out for the Oscar films.
Yeah, and this was one I didn't get round to, and I missed. And oh my God, it is a 5-star movie, this. It was absolutely incredible. Basically, Lou Bloom, Jake Gyllenhaal, is, I would say, deeply troubled guy.
You could start a lot of these films with the same thing. Deeply troubled.
He is obviously desperate for a job. Clearly highly intelligent, self-taught. Tries to use what he learns. And this is, oh my God, this is a great script. Really highlights Gyllenhaal's talents, this script. And appearance is so important. So he comes onto the screen, he's got greasy, slightly overlong hair, a significant loss of weight, and he almost looks vampiric. He's got this look, this hollowed-eyed look, and that's what you first see. And he's obviously short on money, and he sees one night a car crash and a van speed up with a cameraman and films it, basically
like a crew.
Yeah, and then they sell what they've got, and he watches it on the news in the morning, and he thinks, I'm going to do that. So he gets himself a camera and he starts going out and filming things, and it's basically the progression of that, and what he's willing to do to get the footage. And it's deeply disturbing, this film, it really is. But he is unbelievable in it. I cannot believe he wasn't nominated for a Best Actor award that year. I just cannot believe it.
It's awful.
It's as far as I'm concerned, it's the best performance he's ever given, and I just don't know how. This guy, you learn very quickly, he's got no boundaries. He'll do just about anything to get what he needs. And this does start as a form of desperation. I think at the beginning he clearly needs a job and he needs the money, but it's what he does to get it. It's crosses lines, takes advantage of people, and I think the house shooting, this is where there's just no going back from here. He's crossed this boundary he can't come back from. He films the attack instead of helping the people. It's barbaric. It's so hard to watch because he does nothing. He literally, it's so utterly wrong.
He's very good from this point onwards anyway, playing people who in different ways go off the rails a
Yeah,
little bit.
absolutely.
And and in this, there's an element of greed and a bit of obsession as well.
Yeah.
He gets a high from doing these things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just so well done, this movie. The actual progression, the script is incredible. Oh, I mean, it's so tense. It's ridiculous. The music's so good, and it is phenomenal cinema. It really is. Yeah. You know this is going to be really bad. Again, it's very gritty. It's realistic. It feels real, you know, and these things happen. You know, these things happen in LA. That adds to the drama. Part of it was a bit predictable, like the ending bit. It was kind of predictable. But I wanted him dead. I wanted him shot. I wanted him to learn his lesson and have gone too far to come back from. And no, it doesn't work that way. Capitalism being what it is, you know, he prospers, and that's disturbing. That's the disturbing thing that you're left with, that this guy actually gets somewhere. So I thought this was immense. It was incredible. 5 stars, easy, absolutely easy. Yeah. And best thing he's done up to that point. I really do think he's unbelievable in this. I would watch it just for that, just for him.
He is very good.
Absolutely. And now I can have a bit of a break now, and it's your turn,
I was going to say,
isn't it?
People have forgotten I was here. I'm obliged at this point just to mention a few films that didn't cover. Jarhead, a modern war film.
Yeah.
Zodiac, about the Zodiac
fantastic
killer.
He's fantastic in that.
That was 2007. Brothers with Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, that's a good one as well.
In 2009. Sci-fi element in Source Code in 2011, which I used to love.
I need to see that. I've still not seen that.
And then a film that I actually haven't watched yet, and it's called End of Watch from 2012.
Yeah, that got quite a bit of talk, actually, because of the way it was filmed.
It's like a pseudo-documentary.
Yeah.
And he's trained with the police and things like that.
Yeah, but very realistic and very brutal, I've heard.
Yeah, so I think that might be on my list for this week coming. And then Enemy, of course. So now we're into 2015. He did a lot in 2015.
Well, he's done so much, though, hasn't he?
Especially in the last 10 years.
And so many different genres. I mean, everything that we've covered so far is also different. Everything you've just mentioned then that we haven't picked, also different. He's done war, he's done dramas, he's done all sorts. He's done everything.
Yeah.
He's very diverse.
Yeah, so the next one, you could say, is a bit of a sports film as well. This is Southpaw from 2015. Not based on a true story, which I didn't know much about this when I went in. I knew it was a boxing film, so it's not a biopic. He does play, though, a character who's an undefeated world champion light heavyweight boxer, apparently. Very masculine of me. Apparently, it was written with the life of Eminem in mind, and actually he was signed on to play the character for quite a long time.
Did not know that.
Sort of based on his struggles as a white rapper in music, but sort of mapped onto the story of like an orphan boxer. I have to say, though, I was making notes during this film. First 30 minutes or so, they just became redundant because I didn't realise what was going to happen. So I'll explain the way I thought it was going to go. And I thought it was going to focus on the perspective of his wife. Did I say his name was Billy Hope? His name is Billy Hope.
No.
And his wife, Maureen, played by Rachel McAdams, and how she was the glue sort of holding the family together, and how she sort of had to manage the balance between his career and his personal life. Because while it's an astonishing toll on him, like physically, mentally, on her there's equally a great emotional strain, and they've got a 10-year-old daughter, and she's concerned about what's gonna happen if her dad's not around, or if he's taken so many hits that he can't even go to a graduation, things like that. However, those who know the film will know that there is a devastating scene at that 30-minute mark, and the course of the narrative changes.
I haven't seen it, but I do. I had that spoiled.
See, I didn't know. I won't mention what it is, but you'll probably figure out by how I explain the rest. But it was really quite devastating. I wasn't expecting it at all. So Billy finds himself in a position where he's losing everything. He loses his wife. Might have just spoiled it. His money's drying up. He has to give up his house. He's almost losing his mind. And eventually this downward spiral with drink and drugs and this hunger for revenge of the person who was responsible results in him also losing his daughter, who's taken away by Child Protective Services. Unless he can clean up his act. And this is where it was a bit like Mrs. Doubtfire. So he goes to court and he's basically told, you've got, visitation rights, but you have to clean up your act, really. Find a job, get sober, attend anger management, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So the film basically is just about him finding a new way to continue his passion and to make money so that he can support his family.
Yeah.
But also to get his head straight. And that's where he starts working for a gym owner and a former pro boxer trainer who's played by Forrest Whitaker, and he sort of helps him not just retrain his aggressive and offensive fighting style, but also his destructive mindset too. So this is where it sort of slips into a traditional sort of boxing film pattern, but I think the motivations behind it all make it unique enough that it's different. And then there's a big fight in Vegas where he has to overcome his desire for revenge because he's fighting someone who might have been involved in the incident. He has to overcome revenge with redemption for himself instead. And I really quite like it, and it was a really good message. I don't know, about being selfless, taking responsibility and taking control where other people are involved in your life. So I, as with a lot of boxing films, the scenes are really well shot. And I think although I don't watch boxing, I don't watch sports, and I'm not really that interested, it's the kind of film that makes you really invested in it all, and I think that's the mark of a good film.
It's like so many of his, it's not simply in the genre that it's in. There's so much more to it. It's more complex than that. It's the type of film he picks. Yes, they're genre films to an extent, but they're not just generic.
No, not at all.
There's a lot more to them.
And he really does transform here. I mean, not just physically, as you can imagine.
He's huge. He's huge.
Yeah, he is pretty big. And like vocally and other ways physically. After him in a fight versus after a fight. There's a lot going on. So I think at this point I have to mention that he was in a film called Everest. Right, moving on. And he was I actually haven't seen it.
It's good. It's good, but he's not the focus.
No. So he was in that in 2015. Also in 2015, another film that I went in pretty much blind. A very unusual and unique film because of the unconventional characters that are in it. Is a film called Demolition.
I haven't seen this.
I loved this.
Yes, I know you did.
Absolutely loved it. I can't put my finger on why necessarily, but I can't compare it to many other things. So he plays Davis Mitchell in this, who works very high up in an investment firm, I think. Very early on in the film, his wife dies, very suddenly. I won't say how. But what's really intriguing is that Davis has very little emotional reaction. He doesn't cry. He doesn't shout. He doesn't particularly seem to be depressed. He doesn't appear to be grieving at all.
Did they not have a good relationship then?
No comment. I think, I'd rather not tell you.
Okay.
Because that's, like I said, that's where the intrigue comes in, and it persists. But after the funeral, he slips away from the wake at the house to write a very long letter of complaint to a company who supplies the vending machines at the hospital. Because 10 minutes after his wife died, a packet of peanut M&Ms got stuck, and he was quite inconvenienced by this.
So he's channeling his emotions into a letter instead?
Kind of, yeah. And in this letter, he compulsively, I would describe it as compulsively, divulges his entire life story. He just goes off on one. Pages and pages, sends it, and then he turns up for work the next day as if nothing's happened. Everyone's looking at him thinking, your wife has just died.
Yeah, what are you doing here?
And he's just like, much to the disapproval of his father-in-law, who obviously is heavily grieving.
Yeah.
And he owns the company, so he's thinking, what the hell are you doing? So you're thinking at this point, I don't quite get what
Where's
the deal is.
Go?
Yeah, and this behaviour sort of persists throughout the film. He's numb. He's got this extreme lack of empathy. He's brutally honest sometimes, not even in a bad way. It's just he just says what's on his mind. He's unfocused. His mind wanders. He daydreams. And then he gets a bit of a pernickety kind of meticulous obsession with details in his environment, a bit like OCD. And he gets this impulse. It's quite funny. I mean, it is quite funny in the film. He gets this impulse to start taking things apart, like dismantling things.
Yeah.
Just out of just weird random curiosity to find out how they work. So, he dismantles the cubicle door in the toilet because it's squeaking. He does the same with his computer when it crashes. It is unusual. And at one point he passes some workmen who were a building's being a house has been condemned and they're tearing it out. He pays them to let him go in and tear down the house.
Yeah.
There's lots of very satisfying demolition scenes in the film. So yeah, bringing all that round, then one of the things I liked about the film is that there's no label put on what's up, what's going on. There's no mention of OCD. There's no specific mental health issues mentioned. It's really hard to describe. It's just like an interpretation of someone having a hard time dealing with something. And I've barely actually touched on the plot, but what happens is he gets a phone call in the middle of the night one day from a woman who's a customer service rep from the company that he's been writing letters to, because he writes quite a few. Her name's Karen, and she's played by Naomi Watts. And she's a little bit odd too, not to the same extent, and she's got a son who's a bit messed up. And they sort of have this friendship. It's not a relationship as such, but they start spending a lot of time with each other, and then they kind of help him tear down his old life and rebuild his new life. And it's just about not taking little things for granted, I suppose, and dealing with loss and feeling lost.
It's worth mentioning as well, he worked again here with Chris Cooper from his first film.
Oh, yeah. Chris Cooper plays his father-in-law, who does a great job in the film as well.
It's like bringing it round full circle almost, isn't it?
Yeah. So, yeah, apologies that that's a really bad summary of the film, but that's what I like about it.
Just doesn't fit into any boxes, really.
Yeah, and you're not spoon-fed, the answer. This is the character.
Lots of interpretations.
And you just sort of go with it. And in a similar vein, then, my last film, it's Nocturnal Animals from 2016. Yes. Very similar in the sense that you're not given all the answers, and I don't think you're necessarily meant to take it literally.
I don't remember liking this one very much.
No, I saw your Letterboxd score. You gave it 1.5 stars.
Did I?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't think I'd given anything that. Wow. Okay, apart from Dark Crystal, which really was shocking.
Oh, right. Well, I'll start in reverse. I'll give you 8 reasons why this should be higher than 1.5 stars. Here's the cast. You've got Jake Gyllenhaal playing 2 characters. You've got Amy Adams, Michael Shannon, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Armie Hammer, Laura Linney, Jenna Malone, Isla Fisher, and Michael Sheen is the lead cast here.
Yeah, it's a very good cast.
Anyway, this was directed, written, and produced by Tom Ford, who I recently talked about doing A Single Man with Colin Firth. And because it's Tom Ford, the opening shot is of a fat, naked majorette dancing with some sparklers. But that's fine. That's okay because Amy Adams owns an art gallery. It's all just an art installation. And that's fine. It is a very artistic film, I suppose. Well, as I say very, I think it's less artistic than A Single Man is.
Yeah.
There's nothing to say that what is depicted in this film is realistic, based in reality, or intended to be believed, because all art is just ideas being showcased. That's all it is. I love the idea of this film, and I love the way that it's showcased, and I think that's all that matters. Really. So anyway, Amy Adams plays someone called Susan, who is in a deteriorating marriage with Armie Hammer. I know, difficult to imagine. He goes away on a business trip for the weekend. Again, not suspicious at all. And in the post that day comes a package with a manuscript of a novel written by Susan's first husband, Edward, and a note saying, basically, hope you like it, we should meet up. Susan hasn't spoken to Edward for like 20 years. Things between them ended, quote, in a brutal way. And not only is the novel dedicated to her, it says to Susan, but it's also named after a nickname that he used to have for her. So she's thinking, okay. But she's also going through a hard time with her marriage. So she's like, you know what? I'll give this a read. So she sits down one night, begins to read the manuscript, which plays out for us to see. It's like a story within a story. And it's basically, I mean, it's devastating. It's this about a family in Texas who are going on a road trip, and in the middle of the night they're run off the road and terrorized by a gang of I don't know if it's PC to say redneck anymore, but the rednecks, which is one of the most unsettling and terrifying scenes ever. Like they've got a flat tire, they can't get away. They're like hyenas on them. Like, it's really quite horrible. And basically, the wife and the daughter of Jake Gyllenhaal's character in the fictional story, kidnapped, driven away from him, raped and murdered, and left in the desert.
Nice.
And he's driven away into the middle of nowhere and left. And at this point, she slams the manuscript close, and she's like very clearly affected by what she's reading. And from here on in, I can sort of summarize how the film progresses, because it shifts then between the events that she's reading in the novel, which she can't put down no matter how distressing it is, and her reaction in the present, but also then flashbacks to her relationship with Edward, also played by Jake Gyllenhaal. And she becomes more and more aware of like potential parallels between what he's written for her to read and what happened between them in the past. And it really gets into her psyche, really. It gets under her skin. But either way, Edward is now all she can think about. And actually, he seems like a much better option than the life and the man that she's left him for. But I don't think it's all as innocent as that. But again, you're not really given the answer.
Yeah.
Is this a symbolic revenge tale that he's making her read, or is it perfectly innocent? 20 years has passed and his writing's got better, and he just wants her to read something. So yeah, I find that fascinating, and I also think it's great to see 3 different timelines of events: one that's real, one that's fictional, and one that's a memory. And the line between things that are deliberate and things that are coincidence, and how that can blur in your head when you're overthinking things. And if you don't like that, then the actual self-contained story within story is great. Like, it's really, really well done, and that's where you get Michael Shannon and Aaron Taylor Johnson. A few of them, I think, were nominated around the time that year.
Yeah.
I really like it, and I love the ending. It's crushing. Or is it? Depends on your outlook. So yeah, that's my last film. I promise.
Okay. So I am going to finish it up with the 2017 film Stronger. Now, this one is based on a true story about a guy called Jeff, who unfortunately was in the crowd at the Boston Marathon when the bombs went off.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was 2013, I think. And unfortunately, he loses his legs. So the film, basically, it is based on this man. It's a true story. And how he dealt with it, basically. Now, again, what stands out here is the look. I really do think Gyllenhaal always uses this to enhance his performance. Always says a lot about his character. And there isn't much to Jeff before his accident. His hair's too long, his clothes are cheap and stained, he's in a crappy job that he's not really particularly good at. But he seems to be well liked by people despite all this, despite making mistakes, and he's let off with things. And the film is fairly predictable, but the thing that it does, which works to its advantage, is it doesn't shy away from the realities. This guy had issues before the accident. His relationship had broken down already, and the accident makes things change. There were things that he maybe would or wouldn't have dealt with if it hadn't happened.
Yeah.
But it's very clear that there were things that needed changing.
Oh, okay. I get that, though.
Yeah, a standout in this really is Miranda Richardson. She's very good in this. She plays the mother. So, you've got the Boston accents going. I mean, she's very good at accents anyway, Miranda Richardson.
I love her.
And she means well. But she is really quite damaging. Like, before the accident, he's living at home with his mum. He's a 28-year-old man, It's more the fact that she's just enabling him. to live this life. He's I mean, there's no push for him to move out and progress his life. And then after the accident, even more so, she means so well. She believes her son is a hero, but she's pushing him to this kind of fame angle, Oprah and, going to the hockey games, and being seen by thousands of people. And it is well known, it is an American thing anyway, but especially in Boston, this message of Boston Strong came out after the bombings, and it really was a kind of a community coming together, and that was the message that came out of it, Boston Strong. And it's kind of pushed that way, getting him out and seeing people and pushing him to do things, and he's just not comfortable with it. He is really not dealing well. I mean, losing your legs anyway was going to be this horrific change, but not only that, but obviously the mental strain of what happened to him. And he's not coping. And the girlfriend in the film, I mean, the mother doesn't like her for a start, which doesn't help. But she's trying to, get him to grow up. Yes, this thing happened to you, but look what it's doing to everybody else as well. Everybody else is dealing with it, and it forces him to live, basically. And you see how his life turns out. And like I say, it is a very predictable memoir, struggling through adversity, coming out the other side. But like I say, it's the realities of it. There are a few quite shocking scenes of the bombing itself later on in the film, and it doesn't shy away from the emotions. It's really tough. Shows you everything. And it's worth a watch. Just even for the fact that this really happened to the guy, and to see how he turned out and how he turned it round. And again, it's just another solid performance from Jake Gyllenhaal. He really puts his all into it. So yeah, definitely worth a watch. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've just got to mention the ones we missed. After Stronger, I think, came Life. That was in space. Then there was Okja. Can I pronounce that? That's the Bong Joon-ho film, I think.
Yeah, experimental.
Yeah, it's interesting in that. Wildlife, which I think was with Kerry Mulligan.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard it was extremely underrated.
I quite liked it, yeah.
It kind of just missed the mainstream, didn't it? People didn't cotton on to that one.
He's not the main character as such, but he is very good. Then Velvet Buzzsaw, which is, again, I think another divisive one where everything's sort of a little bit artsy and a bit, it's based around art galleries, and he's a very sort of pretentious kind of... It's an interesting character for him.
Yeah.
And then I guess more recently, another genre change is Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yeah, and they changed it a lot from the comic character, made it something very different. Mysterio is not anything like what he was in the comics. They've done something very clever with him.
Yeah.
With that, and he fits so well. He just fits so well into the Marvel universe. I think he did a great job. I really enjoyed that film, actually.
I hope that he doesn't lose the kind of films that he's done.
I don't think it's possible.
I hope it's just a one-off.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's possible. So. I think he's had a career of such diverse choices. I think it's going to stay that way. I can't see him changing.
No, he can't. He can't possibly. One thing I did say at the beginning I wanted to just touch on is in terms of his success from an awards perspective, because he is massively underrated in that respect.
Absolutely.
I've just looked at the main awarding bodies. So, for example, the Screen Actors Guild. He was nominated twice in 2005 for Brokeback Mountain, one for supporting actor and one for ensemble cast, and once for Nightcrawler for leading actor. No wins. Golden Globe Awards, he was nominated in the musical and comedy category for Love and Other Drugs, and for the drama category for Nightcrawler. no wins.
It's just incredible.
Academy Awards, he was nominated for supporting actor for Brokeback Mountain, no win. And the BAFTAs, he was nominated for leading actor in Nocturnal Animals, and didn't win. He was nominated for Nightcrawler, leading actor, didn't win. And he was nominated for supporting actor for Brokeback Mountain and won.
So he did win one. God.
He's won in his whole career of the big awards, he's won one BAFTA for supporting actor.
And he's only got better and better and better. So how the hell has that happened?
Yeah, that makes me quite angry.
I really hope he's one that will win something, but I think he is the type that would be awarded an honorary Oscar for career in however many years' time, because he does have an incredible career. I mean, the films he's done is immense. A lot of it's timing and luck as well. I think there's some great performances out there that should have won, but they've been up against something they were never going to win against. It's hard timing.
In a way, I'm not glad that he hasn't won, but like, we're able to give him this recognition, and talk about him in this way and how good he is. But if we were talking about a multi-Oscar winning actor, we maybe would be a bit like, oh well, of course, it's such a body,
Yeah, everybody knows this. Yeah,
we're actually emphasizing why he's so good, and we've got something, I don't know, to say about it and to prove why he's good, rather than just saying, oh, of course he's good, he's won this.
yeah.
So yeah, I just thought it'd be good to mention the lack of awards attention anyway.
Hopefully that will change.
Because
his career, looking at the films we've looked at, it's very clear that he has shown great progression. He definitely deserves some recognition for that.
But people, watch these films, please.
Yes, absolutely.
Have you got one that you would recommend from this selection above all else? I mean, I imagine that would be...
Absolutely. Yeah. It was phenomenal. I think everything in that movie worked. The script was incredible. The performances were incredible. It looked so dark and gritty. It just, everything about it worked. And it was a phenomenal piece of cinema, I really do think. So yeah, that's my recommendation.
Your first 5-star film in a while, I think.
Yeah, I haven't had a 5-star film in a long while, and usually it's not based on something I'm looking at critically. It's usually something that I've felt.
Yeah.
There was no way you couldn't give this 5 stars, because he was just too good in it not to.
I think I've only watched it the once, but it was enough. Do you know what I mean? It was enough.
Such an incredible script. The monologues he was given in that. That's my definite recommendation. What about you? What are you recommending?
There's lots I'd like to recommend. I'm not going to recommend Nocturnal Animals because I do think it's not to everyone's liking.
I think it's a specific type of movie, isn't it?
But I think the film that shocked me because I was going in completely blind was Demolition.
Yeah.
It's not even that quirky of a film. It's quite a normal film, but it's just different. There's I can't remember a character like that. It's interesting not knowing exactly where you stand with him. You like him, and at times he's very funny, even though the things that he's doing are quite dickish and and horrible.
Yeah,
and it's testament to how he plays it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the concept of it all. So yeah, I'm going to recommend Demolition this week.
Okay, so that's it. That's our Jake Gyllenhaal episode.
Yeah,
I think that was a real highlight of a great career. I do really think, I mean, God, the films that he's done, and even the stuff that we mentioned that we didn't even get to cover, Zodiac, We
could very easily do a whole another 10 in another episode.
Yeah, he's made some incredible films. Should we tell them what we're doing next?
Yes, I'll let you.
Yes. Okay. So this is my episode, and actually, this is something I did study. Actually, we're covering my entire university life.
Well, we did mine in one go.
Yes, we did yours in one go. Yeah. And I've picked Judy Garland as my choice, so we are going to be covering her movies next. It'll be an extremely different episode. Extremely different.
I think so, yeah.
But she is someone that I obviously everybody knows The Wizard of Oz, but really I don't think outside of that much is known.
No.
Especially her films and of her career and things like that. And I cannot wait to deep dive into some of these. Now this is almost completely new to you, isn't it?
I mean, in terms of watching the films, yes. I don't think I've seen any of them. We're doing slightly less.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are new ones to me, and I hope I can. Yeah, I hope I like them. I think I will. I just hope sometimes she does the Dorothy voice, and
what, her voice?
pretty much, yeah. Sometimes it can get a bit too much.
I would say watch her face. She's one of those that was she was a really expressive actress. She doesn't get the justification for it. She was a very, very good actress, and she could say a lot with her face. But it's going to be a good episode because there'll be some more history in this as well. We'll be able to discuss other things rather than just a career.
Quiz?
Yes, I think we should do a quiz.
Yeah. Wizard of Oz quiz.
We're going to attempt a Wizard of Oz quiz. Yeah, Wizard of Oz. That's what you've titled it, haven't you? Wizard of Oz. So I really hope you tune in for that because it's going to be good fun.
Yeah.
So Matt, where can they find us?
You can find us on our website, cinechat.co.uk/podcast. Sorry, it's Wizard of Oz. It's still in my head. Or across social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Please find us, like us, follow us if you want to. And yeah, or you can email us if you really want to at
podcast@cinechat.co.uk.
Fantastic. I think that was a good 10 films to start the year off.
Yes, fantastic.
Loads of recommendations.
Hopefully it'll just go up and up and up.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's bye from me.
And it's bye from me.